Before I begin by starting with the third chapter of the Tanisho, now I actually kind of like to do services this way because people don't understand half of what's going on. And it's good because that's one of the important things that we need to learn, that if we don't understand something, then you should listen. Whereas if you think you know something, then you don't listen, don't pay attention. That's why we get yelled at by spouses and children or parents that we don't listen to a word they say because we think we know what they're talking about. Anyway, I'd like to begin by sharing with you a quote, as Shinran Shonin, as being quoted in the third chapter of the Tanisho, the hymns of lament, I guess. Even a good person is born in the Pure Land. How much so is an evil person? However, people in the world usually say, even an evil person is born in the Pure Land. How much more so is a good person? At first sight, this view seems to be reasonable, but it is contrary to the purport of the original vow of the other power. The reason is that as those who practice good by their self-power lack the mind to rely wholly on the other power, they are not in accordance with the original vow of Amida. However, if they convert their minds of self-power and trust the other power, their birth in the true land of recompense is assured. Amida made his vow out of compassion for those of us who are full of evil passions and who are unable to set ourselves free from samsara by any practice, since the purpose of his vow is to have evil persons attain Buddhahood. The evil person who trusts the other power is especially the one who has the right cause for birth in the Pure Land. Hence the words, even a good person is born in the Pure Land, how much more so is an evil person. Thus the Master said, this past week has been the memorials of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is considered to be a relatively major observance in Japan. Well, very little is actually done here in the United States. And I think this gives us an insight into human nature quite a bit, Over here, people observe or have remembrances, memorials for Pearl Harbor, December 7th. And that's always in the news, but very little is made of that in Japan. And on the surface, this seems natural. Well, it is natural. It shows us the human nature in that we like to be the ones that suffer rather than the ones causing the suffering, right? It really is something that both sides should actually reconsider. We always want to see ourselves as being the ones being caused to suffer. We don't want to take the blame for being the one causing the suffering, right? And this is something that we all do on some level, right? It's never my fault. It's usually his fault or her fault rather than my fault, right? So the three events, Pearl Harbor and then the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, are major events, and they're tragedies in world history, in human history. Both saw major damage in terms of lives and property, and both are events that we hope never happen again. The irony is that both of these, again, are observed by the sides that got attacked rather than the ones doing the attacking. And this is one of the things that Shinran is constantly pointing out to us, that it's really us that should be thinking about the bombing, and Japan should be thinking about the Pearl Harbor portion more, right? And if we are aware of that more, then we don't let things like that happen as often. It would be more meaningful to have the side causing the damage, causing the suffering, to think about this. And this is what Shinran Shonin is stating here. When we really think about it, we shouldn't always be looking about how much pain and suffering he caused me or she caused me. We should be thinking about what I did to cause that person suffering or that person to be inconvenienced. There are various levels of suffering. It could be a minor inconvenience or it could be something major. But we're constantly doing these things and causing it for other people. But we very rarely look at that. We're constantly looking at ourselves, and we're saying, he did this to me, she did this to me, and sometimes we never forget. Like, I think this is true in most family arguments. For some reason or another, things that happened ages and myriads of kalpas ago will be brought up as, especially by wives, I think. But, guys do it too, I guess, but not quite as much, I don't think. Part of that, I think, is because our memories are worse. But anyway, things like this come out, and then, they seem to be festering. But if we were the ones to acknowledge the suffering that we caused, then they wouldn't fester, they wouldn't linger, they wouldn't be there as much. And, basically Shinran Shonin is saying this, that when we really look at ourselves, we're not the ones that we're not the ones that, the only ones suffering in the world. And when we really think about it, a lot more suffering is being caused by us, by each of us. And if we really look at ourselves, we can see that this portion exists within us. So when Shinran says that even a good person is born in the Pure Land, how much more so an evil person? There are many levels of looking at this. There's very many levels of looking at this. One of the things that I got from my grandmother is that when you really think about it, people that tell you how good they are, how many of you like people like that? If they tell you how good they are, how much they do for, this group or that group, how much work they do for people, they're not very nice people in general. The people who are humbler and don't tell you these things are the ones that seem to be actually doing more work a lot of times. But this is, on one level. On another level, if you don't need help, if you're a good person to begin with, you don't need help, right? You don't need help. And it's for those people who see that, yes, we cause suffering and we don't really do much about it. We admit it once in a while when we're forced to admit it, but that's about it. We don't really do much about it. And because of that, we need help, right? It's just like a genius in the classroom doesn't need as much help from the teacher and others as a person who is struggling to get by, right? The person that's struggling to get by, we see our faults, we see our shortcomings, we can't do much about it, and we need help. And basically what Shinran's saying is, look around you, you have help. You have these people that are constantly helping you, encourage you, and both living and those that have gone before, and maybe those in the future are working for us to be able to have the lives we have, to be able to cause suffering and not really get terribly blamed for it or anything like that, to inconvenience people, but still people care. They care about us. And for this we should be grateful. And this is that evidence of that compassion at work on our lives, that yes, I cause people problems, I cause people to worry, I do worse than that at times, but there's still people who care. And this is something that we should be grateful for. A lot of times, we take things for granted, but so many things have to be just right for us to be able to meet people, to do things that we really don't pay much attention to it. Yesterday I was at the Coast District Youth Retreat, and one of the activities I made the kids do was we got 3 kids, tied their arms and legs together so that they only had one set of arms, and then blindfolded 2 of them, and they had to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and eat it. Feed it to the center person. So the center person can see what's going on, but the arms and the legs can't see what they're doing. And the point of this was that, just about anybody can open up a jar of peanut butter, open up a jar of jelly, they can get a slice of bread and butter it and eat it. But we take that for granted, we really don't think too much about it. But the amount of coordination, the amount of cooperation that's really necessary for that to happen is something we don't pay any attention to. Right? We just take it for granted. But it all has to be just right for us to be able to do this something that simple. And, how much more do we take for granted? How much more are we taking for granted? Right? There's so much that has to come together in just the right way for us to enjoy it, but it does. But it does. And for this we should be grateful. This is why we say Namo Amida Butsu, to express our gratitude for all these unseen causes and conditions coming together in just the right way for us to have the lives that we do have.